Good. All right, 7:03, we'll call the meeting to order. Mrs. Dickman, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Apologize for the delay, there's lots of technical difficulties going on. All right, Mrs. Wertz and Mr. Glenn are absent, all our board members are present. Mr. Board, has public notice been given?
It has. We are working off of the revised agenda as indicated on the agenda.
It's public comments. 3A, the general public comments. Per policy 0167.3, anyone wishing to participate in the period of public comment must be a resident of the Richland School District, the parent or the legal guardian of an enrolled district student or an enrolled district student. Persons wishing to participate must physically be present at the meeting and must register in advance. A total time allotment of 30 minutes will be given for public comment. Each participant shall be given 3 minutes to address the board. A translator may be used to translate verbal communications to the board. If such translation services are used, 6 minutes shall be given to that participant, with only the first 3 minutes being designated to that total time allotment. Speakers are not permitted to make inflammatory comments, use inappropriate language or gestures, attack specific persons, or make a specific person the subject of their remarks. Please see policy 0167.3 for a complete list of requirements and restrictions. If a person is unable to adhere to these rules, they may be directed to end their comments. And these are all for 3B, correct, Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're on to 3B, public comment regarding policy 9500.02, the naming of district facilities.
And this public comment is not technically under public comment as defined by the restrictions that we have. Our policy states that with any new policy, the discussion and consideration, an opportunity should be offered to concerned groups of individuals to react to policy proposals. So that's what this agenda topic is. So there is no restrictions in terms of time limit, but it will have to be restricted to this particular policy.
Yeah, and there's also no time limit per se to this. We just ask that people be respectful of time if you're speaking tonight. So, first on the list is David Ewing.
I'll just pass at this point to reserve comment a little bit later. I'm here on behalf of a request that I made for potential naming of the track in Claire Haig's behalf. And I didn't know what procedure is to be followed. And that was my request to one of the school board members. And I'm not sure what the status of that is, so I'm just here tonight to listen and comment as needed.
Okay, thank you. Ruth Wilson.
Do we come over here? You stand here? Or?
Right up there, there's
Okay.
a microphone at that podium.
So hi, my name is Ruth Wilson. My concern this evening is in regard to a field that is already named, the football soccer field, Avitus Rip Field. Avitus Rip Field was named and dedicated on August 24th of 2007. A group of concerned citizens are here this evening to encourage you, our school board, to make no change to the name of this field that is already named. I know that none of you were on the school board when the board approved the naming of the field on November 20th of 2006 and the dedication of the field on August 24th of 2007. I would like to give a brief history of this approval process. The idea of naming the football soccer field Avitus Rip Field was brought before the school board first. Then we went to the Buildings, Property, and Transportation Committee, the Curriculum and Assessment and Public Relations Committee, and then to the Policy Committee. The Policy Committee created a policy at that time that references the permanent dedication or naming of school facilities or grounds to honor an individual. Avitus Rip contributed a lot to this school district. He taught physical education for 26 years. He was the athletic director for 15 years. He coached golf, girls basketball, freshman boys basketball, and he coached football for 22 years. He also taught many of our students to drive by teaching behind the wheel for 30 years. He was instrumental in working with the RCHS Student Council to start the American Red Cross Bloodmobile visiting Richland Center High School. The American Red Cross still comes to RCHS. This is huge. This is a pretty extensive list of commitment to our school district. Avitus Rip touched so many lives in this area in so many different ways. He was such a positive influence on our students. He believed in them, he encouraged them, and they succeeded. In conclusion, I urge you, our school board, to make no change to this field that is already named Avitus Rip Field. Our understanding from November 20th of 2006, when the school board approved the naming of the football soccer field, Avitus Rip Field, was that the naming of this field was permanent. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gary Schwartz.
Board President Vihan, board members, District Administrator Board. I'm Gary Schwartz, retired teacher, school counselor, dean of students, coach, and substitute teacher, and I'm currently a volunteer coach. My purpose tonight is to share some thoughts regarding the pending naming of district facilities policy under consideration. And I preface my remarks by wanting to make it clear that I'm not challenging the need for a policy. My background and experience have taught me that policies, guidelines are necessary to avoid confusion and inconsistencies, and they provide a good baseline for decisions. And as a career educator and coach, I'm sadly aware of the fact that local school boards, teachers, administrators, coaches, advisors have to continually find creative fundraising opportunities. But there are three areas in this regard I'd like to address. First, as I understand from reading the draft of the naming of district facilities policy, there are two distinctly different designations. The first being recognition based on monetary donations, sponsorships, and the second based on a legacy of service or leadership. While both are honorable and deserve recognition, the legacy of service recognition is unique in that it's earned over time and cannot be purchased. The concept of legacy is something that's passed from generation to generation. For this reason, it seems appropriate for the legacy portion of the policy to reflect recognition for longer than 10 or 15 years. Could a policy contain a time differentiation between naming based on legacy and naming based on financial contributions or sponsorship? Second, is there an option for a facility to be co-named? An example being a softball field named for Coach Jane Doe based on the earned legacy of the person, being co-named with Acme Industries, who contributed $15,000 for the upgrade of lights, dugouts, and a backstop. The name being the Jane Doe Acme Industry softball field. The legacy name would exist for a generation's time period, while the sponsorship would be for lesser time limits, each determined by your board policy. The third is a specific situation, the naming of Avitus Rip Field. At the time of the naming, I was under the impression, as I believe were many others, that there was neither time limit nor subject to financial or other criteria. The community and the board at that time acted cooperatively to make that decision, and it was a community celebration. I realize the board has the right and obligation to change policies as circumstances warrant. However, this is a situation that a memorialized legacy could be superseded by financial considerations. And for this reason, I ask the board consider a grandfathered exemption for situations of this nature. I thank you for your opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
Thank you. All right, District Administrator's report.
Just a few announcements. This week, Thursday, we have our rescheduled committee meetings from last week. Buildings and Property will be this Thursday starting at 6 o'clock with our Personnel Negotiations and Budget Development Committee starting at 7:15. In addition, Friday is Good Friday. The district will be closed. There will be no school for students or staff on Friday. However, Friday is also the state day for any potential write-in candidates to declare candidacy by noon on Friday. And so when we couple that state deadline with our district closed, we urge any write-in candidates to fill out their paperwork, if there are any, prior to Thursday. But on Friday, I will plan on being here until noon, and if I have to step out for any reason, I will leave my cell phone number on the district office door, and any write-in candidate can call me and make sure that we meet that deadline. So that will be what Friday looks like and how it relates to Good Friday and the district closure. And then lastly, this is more of a question for our board members. State statutes indicate that any new board members or our board members are sworn in not the last Monday in April, but no later than the fourth Monday in April. And so with that, April 22nd is the day which board members, new board members, and those re-elected would have to be sworn in by. And so I am asking the board their availability for changing a regularly scheduled meeting to not only our April 8th meeting, but April 15th, so that we can move our reorganization and swearing in to the 22nd. So I don't know if board members have any comments or thoughts on that particular day right now, or if you need time to explore your calendars, know that that is a day that I'm asking you to see if you're available on April 15th, and then moving the reorganization from the 29th to the 22nd, so that we can swear in our board members on the 22nd.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so we'll see in at least 5. We will make that official tomorrow, but we'll go with regularly scheduled board meetings on April 8th, April 15th, April 22nd will become the swearing in, oath of office, and the reorganization meeting, and then no meeting on April 29th. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Board member reports. Seeing none, we'll go on to food service update.
And our food service director, Jody Pretsch, is not able to make it tonight, and so that will have to get pushed back to a future board meeting.
Is there a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes of March 11th, 2024?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Dowden, second by Ms. Troxel. Discussion? Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, financial items, approval of statement of cash.
I move we approve the statement of cash dated March 21st, 2024.
Motion made by Mr. Dowden, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Dickman. Mr. Bosworth, anything you want to add?
Since we've had our last board meeting, we have not had any large state aid payments or levy payments come in, but we have done some transferring from the local government investment pool back to community service, or excuse me, Community First Bank for operations.
Discussion? Mr. Doudna?
Aye.
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 Great. Approval of invoices.
I move we approve Community First Bank General Checking Account checks number 86121 through number 86149, ACH number 232-401172 through 232-401244, and EFT number 202-300077 through 202-300080, for a net total of $434,216.18. This is for the purpose of general operating costs of the district.
Motion made by Mr. Doudna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Huntermer. Mr. Bosworth, anything you want to add?
Not a lot of unique expenditures in this cycle. I would only draw your attention to one of them. On page 3, about a third of the way down, check number 86147, you'll see there's a lease payment there to Quadient Leasing. We have a mail machine in our district office, and all the mail that comes out of our district from any of our buildings routes through there, so it's a pretty good sized machine. It gets a lot of work. There's been some changes in federal mail regulations, and we needed to upgrade our machine. So that lease payment, and you'll see that for years to come, that's what that's for.
Discussion? Mr. Huntermer?
Aye.
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 All right. Mrs. Steele, consent agenda items?
Accept the donation of carpet squares for the Richland Center primary school classrooms valued approximately $46 from Badgerland Flooring of Southwest Wisconsin LLC per policy 7230. Accept the donation of the homemade winter hats valued at approximately $195 from the Park Street Christian Church per policy 7230. Approve the budget revisions for the 23-24 fiscal year as presented in accordance with the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 65.905A. This shall require at least a 2/3 majority vote, and that is it.
Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Dickman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Traxel. Discussion? Mrs. Dickman?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank Badgerland Flooring of Southwest Wisconsin LLC and Park Street Christian Church for their generous donations. Is there a motion to approve the modified agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Troxel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Doudna. Discussion? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, on to agenda item 9, information and discussion items. 9A, district transfers and vacancies.
So we've got just 2 hourly positions that are open as of right now, so they're listed under the 23-24. We've got a night custodial position as well as an EC4K aide due to a transfer, internal transfer. And then for 24-25, we have several certified or teaching positions open. At the primary school, we have an art position, a speech pathologist position, as well as a 4K and a 5K teacher. At the intermediate school, we have a cross-categorical teacher that we've got a position open for. And at the high school, we have both a math and an ID teacher open as well. So we hope to we're making progress on those, doing interviews, and hope to have some names coming to the board and closed in the near future. Any questions from the board? Thank you.
9B, district debt comparison.
Well, Mr. Bosworth is getting ready. At our last board meeting, one of the board members, after Mr. Bosworth had given an overall debt summary, had asked how do we compare, how does our debt compare to other districts? And so Mr. Bosworth is bringing that information back to the board for a quick presentation. if we're able to get our technology to cooperate. It's 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I'll hit it. Okay. At the last board meeting, we talked a little bit about the overall debt for the Richland School District. And one of the last questions that we had was, how does that debt compare to other school districts of similar size? So this is debt, it's actually as of June 30, 2022. So probably should say 21, 22 total debt comparison. But you can see all of the green schools are conference schools. River Valley would be here, smaller amount of debt, and then Lancaster would be here with 0 debt. Also a table in your board book. So there's, you can see how we fit inside of the conference. And then the blue bars, one of the comparisons we do in salary negotiations is to look at 11 school districts throughout the state that have enrollments above us and 11 below us. So we use those. I use those as similar size districts so you can see where we fit in relation to those other school districts. It says right here we're about 10 million. The one thing I would have you keep in mind, this is as of June 30, 2022. So last year we made a fairly large defeasance payment, probably about 1.8 million. And then that would happen again this year, over 3 million. So in actuality, this bar may be about half as big for us. Granted, the other districts may have used a similar strategy as well. But just so you know, this data is about 1.5 years old, but that's how it goes with the state trying to get data. It's always about a year behind. So not much else to tell you besides that, but I think the idea was just kind of a general understanding of where the Richland fit in terms of other debt as we come into possible referendum questions when we may incur more debt. Anything I could try to help with?
If I'm not mistaken, River Valley has just recently undergone some significant upgrades to their facilities. That's likely not factored into this because I believe that's much more recent than June of '22.
I believe that's accurate.
Just as a point of order.
Are there any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Well,
Right. 9C, the 2023-24 goals and priorities.
Okay, so many of you know we have 3 priorities and 2 goals within each of those priorities. And this is an opportunity to give kind of an update on that and spend a little bit of time specifically on one. But our first priority was that we make a connection with students and address their mental health. And there were 2 goals that centered around that every student feels comfortable talking or reaching out to at least one adult staff member. And the second goal was that every student had at least one good friend. So the board and public may remember that back in the fall, we did some baseline data and polled all of our students, grades 2 and up, to determine this information. Who do they feel comfortable talking to as staff members, and do they have friends both in the community, in another school, or in our school? And then we did that same survey in January again, and so now we have some numbers to compare to. And I'm happy to report that we have 100% of our students in our school district that reported that they had a positive connection with at least one staff member. And then everyone, they went through and actually rated every single staff member. I know who they are, I feel comfortable talking to them, I don't really know who they are, I don't really feel comfortable. And every student, 100%, reported that they had a positive connection with at least one adult. So that's great news. We're going to do the survey again at the end of the year and hope that we continue to have 100%, which was our goal. The second goal was that every student had at least one good friend. And that survey did identify that there were 6 students throughout our pre-K through, grade 2 through seniors that reported that they did not have a good friend. And our building administration is aware of who those are, and we're trying to find ways to get those students involved and connected without, calling them out or, making them feel awkward. But we do know who those are, and we're trying to be very conscious of trying to connect them with other individuals so that they have a good support system as well. So I thought that both of those are top priority. Both of those show positive results in both of them, but obviously we still want to try to get those 6 students a good friend. The second priority centered around recruiting and retaining high-quality staff. And so the 2 goals there was, one, to ensure that every staff member had a sense of community, and that process is still in play. We sent out in our recent staff survey, we asked them to weigh in on some questions as it related to their ability to connect, and we presented those results to the Curriculum and Assessment Committee, and we're just going to continue to evaluate that. We need to understand a little bit more what we're facing, but we did get some good data revolving around that. And then the second goal revolving around that priority was that we defined what high-quality staff means. It's one thing to say we're looking and we want to retain and attract high-quality staff, but what does it mean to have high-quality staff in the Richland School District? And so we've been working for several months with a group of staff members made up of various employee groups to come up with a definition of what that looked like. And so that group came up with 9 different points on what it means to be a high-quality staff as it revolves around their leadership, their investment, culture and climate, professional development, and then their collaboration skills. And then we sent those 9, we included those 9 criteria individually with that staff survey that we sent out prior to the holidays. And we asked staff to weigh in on each one of those 9. Do you agree that a high-quality staff member does this? Okay? And every one of those 9 qualities had at least 93% of our staff supported that. Said, yes, that's what a high-quality staff means. So I think that we have a very solid definition. Obviously, our staff, with 93% agreement or higher for each one of these, feels that this is a good definition. So what I'm asking specifically our board to look at tonight is, certainly happy to answer any questions that they might have, but really take this definition and between now and our April 8th board meeting, really digest that and see if you agree that this is what it means to be a high-quality staff. And then on April 8th, I, along with our Curriculum Assessment Public Relations Committee, are asking the board to act on that definition. Is this so that we can put it in formal action? This is what the Richland School District defines as high-quality staff. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have pertaining to that. So that's the big ask that I'm asking from you tonight. And I'll circle back to this in a second, but I'll just touch base for a moment on priority 3, getting our students college and career ready. This was the one that got the slowest start, but we are making some progress. We do have a survey out on social media, and we'll go in each of the next newsletters, if it hasn't already, that we can follow up with past graduates to get their input on whether or not they felt that their education in the Richland School District prepared them for life after school at the Richland School District. Did it prepare them for their career? Did it prepare them for college and anything in between? So that survey's out there. And then we are also working to define career-ready and employability skills. And we presented a draft to the Curriculum Assessment Public Relations Committee at their last meeting. We're working now with our staff to see, again, do they agree that this is a solid definition? And also, not only our staff, but local stakeholders in the community, the workforce, as well as local education entities post-secondary education, Southwest Tech, and then some of the 4-year and 2-year universities around. Do they agree that this is a solid definition? So that's where we're at with that. I expect that one to come back in the near future for the board to act on that as well. But right now, we're still kind of in the vetting process. But again, circling back, the big ask that I would ask the board is to be prepared to act on solidifying that definition of high-quality staff and what it means to be a high-quality or distinguished staff member of the Richland School District. Any questions from the board on any of those priorities or specific to any one of them?
I had a two-part question on priority number 1. In the baseline test that was taken, or in the survey, what percentage did not feel comfortable with at least one adult in our initial go-around? Also, if you have that, also 6 students do not identify as having a close friend. Might we know if that number has changed since the baseline survey?
Yeah, let me start with the second. We do know that that has improved. I don't remember if it was 11 or 12, but it was just over double digits in the first number. And then your second question, we're at 100% now. What were we at before? Again, I know it wasn't 100%, and I will get the information for sure. I want to say it was like 96%, but I don't quote me on either one of those numbers. But I will get those figures for you and the board. Any other questions from the board?
On priority 3, initially, when we were rolling that out, it was challenging to get people to respond out of those 250 past graduates. With the rollout of the new survey, is it proven to be more effective? Are you getting more respondents?
I think it's too early to know for sure, but all we would need is one, and it would be equally as effective as the previous strategy. So I anticipate, and you know, the biggest challenge that we had initially was getting in contact with postgraduates. So we had to put a survey out there just to collect contact information. So that was problematic. This is much more general. Anybody who is a past graduate can take the survey. It will kind of ask different questions based on when you maybe graduated so that we can get the data that we're looking for, but it will also give us a way to get some of that contact information. So I fully anticipate us having much more success, but I think it's a little early to know exactly where we're at. I haven't looked at the survey.
Are there any other questions from the board? All right, on to action items then. 10A, approval for summer, fall, early college credit program, the ECCP courses.
Okay, so this centers specifically around our high school students as they look to take early college credit or college, start college now, college up credits, depending on if they're at the UW system or a tech school. And the courses each year or each semester are approved by the board. There's an attachment with a PDF with 5 pages of students who are requesting to take credits at a post-secondary institution. They would do that within their school schedules. We would provide them with the time to have a study hall or not an actual class scheduled for them to have time to work on their courses at the various tech schools. There are 5 pages, as I mentioned, but keep in mind that students will often not be able to get into the course, the first course that they wanted, and so several of the students have listed alternate courses as well. So not every single one of those will be courses that will have to be approved, but they have to get the approval to take them. So we've asked students to give their alternate courses as well in case they are unable to get into the first course. And then you can see from that chart, if the district offers a comparable course within our school walls, then the pupil would pay 100% of those courses. That would be, the tuition would be on them. If there's no comparable course and it fulfills a graduation requirement, there's no cost to the pupil. District pays 75% and the state reimburses for 25%. And then if there's no comparable course but it does not fill a graduation requirement, district pays 25%, state reimburses for 50%, and then the pupil or family pays 25%. So that's kind of the breakdown of what the district obligation or the school student or family's obligation might be. Mr. Lemke is available as well if you have any specific questions to the program, but this is something that the board sees typically, 2 times a year. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I got a statement. Some of it to me is divisive, and therefore I'm not going to support it. The topics that are being studied, I don't feel they're conducive to a good mindset.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is it determined if the district offers a similar course?
Mr. Lemke, can you?
Yep, I don't have a mic, so I'll try to talk loud. Ms. Perkins and I, thank you, Mr. Huffmer. Ms. Perkins and I meet with the counselors, and we kind of comb through what the ask of the class is and do the best we absolutely can. Like, there's a million different offerings from all the colleges in the state. So we do the best we can with if we have questions, we call them and try to get a just kind of a brief overview of what the class is, and then look at our own class offerings and see if it's similar or not. So we do the best we can. It's pretty consistent. Once we have a class that we're a little unsure of, we have a spreadsheet that we get the information from the college, plug it in there, and then we have it forever.
Is there a maximum amount of classes, ECCP, that a student can take in a given year?
In a given year, help me out, John, but 18 total credits through their high school career. You know that. So through a given year, I don't know off the top of my head if there's a limit. Didn't think so. But as long as, once they hit 18, then that's it.
And some of these classes, I assume, are 4 versus 3 credit?
Yeah, most of them you'll see on the list, are 3. There are a spattering of 4 credit classes, a couple 2s, and then even a 1. Okay. So, kind of all over the place, but most of them are 3.
Any other questions from board members?
Just out of curiosity on attendance, how does that work? Because usually college starts after we do, or before we do, and ends before we do.
Yeah, it's a little fluid. Like Mr. Board alluded to, they have a spot on campus here to work on those classes. So there's a staff member in our building that's making sure they're here, working on it. In terms of actually attending the class, that's up to the university. It just kind of is dependent on their grade, right? That's what, if they don't attend enough, they'll likely get a poor grade.
And just to piggyback on that, what happens if they do sign up for these classes and it is paid for by the school district with the reimbursement from the state and the student doesn't pass the class? Say they come and they just don't even do the online coursework.
Great question. Don't know if I've experienced that yet, but a lot of the times these classes can be extended. So, for example, through Southwest Tech, like these classes can be extended. So if a student has a failing grade at the end of the term, they can be extended from time to time. But in terms of if a student fails, do they reimburse the school district?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We have not had anybody that happened, that in the last 10 years or so, that has not come up.
Dr. Johnson, do you know?
Yeah, it's, with the college courses through the university system, there isn't anything. We could create something if we wanted, but in Start College Now and College Up through the technical colleges, there is a requirement, and if they don't pass, the student is responsible for the cost of the class.
Any other questions? Is there a motion then to approve ECCP courses as presented through the 2024 summer and fall semester?
I'll make that.
Motion made by Mr. Huntemer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Troxel. Discussion? Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye. All right, 10B, the new policy 9500.02, naming of district facilities, second reading.
Okay, so whenever the district is looking at implementing a new policy, there are 4 steps that needs to happen. The first is the first reading that happened at our last board meeting. And then there is an opportunity offered to concerned groups or individuals to react on the proposals. That happened earlier tonight. The third step is a discussion and consideration of the board, okay, before a vote or anything like that is taken. And that is meant to determine, do we have all the information that we need? Do we need more information? Do we want to kick that back to policy? Are there things that we didn't consider after we heard from different groups? And then, if it's still looking, like everybody's got their questions answered, then it could go to a final vote on adopting or to not adopt that policy. And then when it would be effective. Typically, they're effective immediately, but there could be a date on when that becomes effective. So right now, we would be in the discussion and consideration mode. So I would turn it over to the board president for that discussion.
All right, thank you. So the discussion would just be amongst us. If we have any questions, we can always ask and have them answered. There is recommended action on this tonight. However, we don't have to take action. It can always be deferred to go back to policy for further discussion and investigation should we deem that necessary. So I guess I'll kick it off to board members for the discussion part of this.
We do have one policy member here, but we do have the other 2 policy members are absent, so.
Well, first, I would personally like us to wait on this, to send it back to policy, especially since Mrs. Wertz and Mr. Bailing aren't here tonight. I really appreciate the community members that came out and spoke, and I think we really need to take to heart their comments and their thoughts and share that back with Mrs. Wertz and Mr. Bailing, and then we bring it back, once we've talked it over. That would be my feelings. Because back in 2006, did you say, Ruth? 2006. I did speak in favor of naming that football field after Coach Rail. So I would really like to take, really think long and hard on keeping that and having it grandfathered in.
Because this policy doesn't address the grandfathering in. It would, literally, it would take anything that's existing and start the 10-year clock and then the opportunity for a 5-year renewal. So you would want a policy to look at the grandfathering.
Correct.
So just to be clear on these policies, these are being brought before us because of Neola, and like this is their recommendations?
This is not a Neola policy. There are Neola clients that have this policy. This is actually a hybrid mostly from McFarland or Edgerton, one of those 2 school districts. I can't remember which one. We looked at both of them. And so it was brought to the attention of some, just naming of different facilities, and is there an opportunity for sponsorships, and how do we go about this? We didn't really have a real clear policy that outlined procedures and what it looked like, and so that's kind of where it started. So Neola helped us draft this, but it is not a Neola this is their policy that all of their clients use.
Okay. And just for information for us on the board, but also the community, can you just briefly explain Neola and the benefit to them and?
Yep, Neola is a firm, their headquarters are out of Ohio, but they have a staple in Wisconsin. Over 3/4 of the school districts in Wisconsin use Neola. Neola is a school policy expert, and so by hiring the services of Neola, it allows us to more effectively and efficiently keep our policies up to date and compliant, okay? In the past, we have 10 sets of policies, and the policy committee would tackle each one of those each year. And so it took us 11 years before we got back to the first set of policies. This way, Neola can keep all of us up to date on the laws and regulations and Title IX compliance and all of those things. We can stay compliant doing those annual updates, and then our policy committee can focus on policies that are specific to our local district, like this.
Okay.
So, yep, thank you.
Mr. Dowden, any thoughts?
I'm along with Sheila. We need to take a look at it and see what we can do for grandfathering things in.
Mr. Hunterman?
I'm not opposed to waiting. Obviously, it's an area of contention, and so if we take action tonight and that automatically starts that 10-year clock, that becomes a dilemma. Whereas I like the idea of getting through the second reading so that it can become a destination we can move towards. However, obviously, we have some little tweaking to do, or at least add in the language that gives the option to grandfather in, to at least give us that opportunity if we choose.
Mrs. Dickman?
I agree.
All right, well, we will not take action on this tonight. Mr. Board, this will go back to policy for further discussion.
That's correct, yep.
All right, appreciate everybody's input and time on this. On to 10C, the closing date for Jefferson School.
Okay, so the attachment in your board book is a request from Carrie Norman, CLM Properties. We had agreed on selling Jefferson to Mr. Norman and CLM Properties. There was a closing date by the end of April that is tentatively set with Southwest Title for April 30th, 2024. Mr. Norman has requested that closing date be extended to January 7th, 2025. Again, that letter is attached, and if accepted, then he would assume all maintenance responsibilities along with insurance, utility costs, starting as soon as April 1st, okay? Mr. Norman is here tonight. If you have any questions specifically for him, I believe you've got information regarding that, and the letter is in the board book. Maybe I'll start with, do board members have any questions for me? And then, if not, if you have any questions for Mr. Norman, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Ambihan.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions for either Mr. Ward or Mr. Norman?
Mr. Board, technically, he wouldn't be able to insure it because he technically wouldn't own it, correct?
School district would have to have the insurance under our name, would be correct. I'm assuming that there would be a reimbursement for that when he's referring to all costs. We can ask him that, but I'm assuming that's his intent.
I would make a motion to deny Mr. Norman's request and proceed with the April 30th, 2024 closing date.
So there was a motion made by Mr. Doudna to deny Mr. Norman's request and proceed with an April 30th, 2024 closing date. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Further questions?
So explain to me again why we're asking for, Mr. Norman is asking for the extension.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak for Mr. Norman. I would ask the board president and maybe Mr. Norman could answer that question on the why, if that's okay. Mr. Norman, do you want to come up and maybe answer the question of the why? I know you've given me some general things, but I want to let you speak to your...
Thank you for considering this. Thank you for considering this proposal to me. The reason is it took the city like 6 months to get it properly, redone there. It's going to take another 6 to 7 months for the engineer, architect, state approval, contractor to go into the next phase. The next phase is this decide where we can divide certain things. And then after that, it would go into more construction phase as to what the building is going to actually end up being used for. So basically, I'm 6 to 7 months out setting on the building, with the exception of the daycare. I am working with them. I talked to Chris, I left Chris a voicemail this morning saying I was going to be talking to you guys tonight. So I was waiting to hear back from her. But outside her, she's the only person that I'm working with, because I've always kind of agreed to keep them there and try to work with them and their needs that they need. Outside that, I'm 6 to 7 months out. Basically an empty building. There's nothing I can do.
I'm just going to piggyback up. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just asking for that extension. And as Steve had mentioned, and Brian, if you would accept that, I would work with those two to find out. I'm assuming like the gas and the electric would be probably the biggest ones that would be, switched over into the appropriate name. You did bring up the insurance. Once again, I would address that issue with Steve to make sure. My object is to make sure that there'd be no more expense due to me asking for that during that time period to the school.
Thank you.
And I'll just piggyback off that what Mr. Norman's referring to as far as what the city took a long time on is there was a contingency on rezoning that has jumped through the city hoops now, and it has been rezoned appropriately. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, it has been appropriately rezoned for different situations, because I don't know what it's going to be exactly. I know people have approached me and this and that. But I don't know of anything until I can divide the building, how I need to divide it for fire protection. And that's going to take 6 to 7 months. Any other questions? Thank you.
There's been a motion and a second to deny the request and proceed with the April 30th closing date. With the discussion prior to that, can open it up to the vote unless somebody wants to change it, the motion, amend it. All right, seeing none, Mr. Doudna?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
All right. Make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to under statutes 19.851C and/or F as appropriate to consider employment, promotion, and compensation of employees for purposes of discussing individual employee hiring and administrative evaluations, and Wisconsin statutes 19.851F and Wisconsin statutes 118.125 to discuss student open enrollment applications and individual pupil information related to those applications. The board may take action on these issues in closed session if necessary and appropriate. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there any second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Dickerman. Discussion? Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.